sweetest that ever was heard.
Morning, everyone. It's a great privilege to be here this morning to worship God in spirit and in truth. Before our morning service by Brother John, we'll be reading the book of John, chapter 11, verse 17 to 27. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem. Many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. Martha heard that Jesus was coming. She went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But now I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus said to her, for your brother will rise again. Martha answered, I knew he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life, and no, the one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she replies, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is come into the world. Amen.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's good to be here with you this morning and to welcome all of you and to welcome those on Zoom today as well. Have you ever wished that you could travel back in time? And if you could, where would you go? Perhaps you would go to some great historical event that occurred in the past, or perhaps you would want to relive some moment from your childhood or some family memory and go back to that occasion. The time machines are maybe the subject of science fiction, but there is a way for us to take a trip back in time. When we read a history book or a Charles Dickens novel, when we watch an old black and white newsreel or look at an old photograph, when we visit a museum or when we stand in the ruins of an old castle, we can cast our minds back and transport ourselves back in time. We see the walls of that castle rising up, and we imagine all of the people who lived there and all of the things that they were doing. The Bible may also be our portal to the past. But when we read some of the great stories in the Bible, we try to imagine what it must have been like to have been there, to place ourselves at the scene of the action and to have witnessed all of those remarkable events. This morning, I'd like us to take a trip back in time. And we're going to travel back 2,000 years to Judea, to a small village called Bethany, about 2 miles southeast of the city of Jerusalem. When we arrive there, we notice that things are very different to the world we have just left. There are no cars or lorries on the dusty roads. No one is looking at a smartphone. No one is wearing jeans and trainers. There are no McDonald's or Starbucks on the high street. Instead, there may be a few animals wandering around, some donkeys and goats perhaps, and a few chickens. A group of Roman soldiers pass us by because this is a land that is under military occupation. And we know that they are Roman soldiers because they look like the pictures we have seen in our Ladybird book of Roman Britain. We arrive at a house and we go inside. And this is the home we have come to visit. It looks pretty basic by our standards. It has none of the modern appliances that we may have in our homes, none of the furnishings that we have. And we have arrived at the home of a man named Lazarus. He lives here with his 2 sisters, Martha and Mary. And we're just going to stay for a while and like a fly on the wall, watch what's going on. There seems to be some sort of Bible class taking place. A man named Jesus is teaching a group of people who are sitting around him. He comes from up north, from the region of Galilee and the town of Nazareth. He is what we might call an itinerant teacher. In our time, we might call him an influencer with a large following on social media. And many people are impressed with the things that he is teaching about the kingdom of God, because there's something different about the way he teaches compared to the things that they're used to hearing from their religious teachers in the synagogues. Others are enthralled by the miracles he performs, healing people of their diseases, giving sight to the blind, casting out demons, feeding thousands of people with just a few loaves of bread and a couple of fish. There are a lot of people who want to follow Jesus, to learn from him and to become his disciples. But there are others who are beginning to think he might be trouble. The religious leaders, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, worry about what he might say or do next. And then what will their Roman overlords think of it all? They can't afford to have them upset. That would cause even more trouble. But Jesus feels welcome in this home. Lazarus, Martha, and Mary are his close friends, and he loves them. And now he's in their home teaching his disciples. And there, sitting at his feet, is Mary. And she's listening attentively to his words, because she too is one of his disciples. Suddenly, Jesus is interrupted as Martha bursts into the room. She's clearly upset and angry. It was Martha who had welcomed Jesus into her home, and she had wanted everything to go well for this visit. She's been out preparing the meal, but she has become overwhelmed with all that needs to be done, and no one has been helping her. Her sister Mary is sitting there listening to Jesus, oblivious to Martha's predicament. And the resentment builds up inside until Martha can no longer constrain herself. She bursts in and she says to Jesus, "Lord, don't you mind that my sister has left me to do everything by myself? Tell her to get up and help me." "Why don't you talk to her, Jesus? Can't she see I need some help? Just tell her." And then we hear Jesus reply compassionately, but with a touch of rebuke. "Martha, my dear, you are worried and bothered about providing so many things. Only a few things are really needed, perhaps only one. Mary has chosen the best part, and you must not tear it away from her." The practical-minded Martha had been anxious about the provision of a nice meal for Jesus, whilst Mary had been more concerned about her spiritual sustenance and feeding upon Jesus' words. Mary had chosen to listen to Jesus, and at that moment, that was the most important thing to do. The preparation of a meal could wait. And as we survey this scene, we're left wondering about our own lives. What are the important things in our lives? And are they really all that important? Have we somehow mixed up our priorities? Where is our relationship with Jesus on our list of important things to do? And as we leave the house, these are the things that are on our minds. Well, we're going to travel forward in time and return to this same house, perhaps a year or so later. And now when we enter, we notice the atmosphere is very different. Once again, the house is full of people, but this time there is the sound of weeping and wailing. For this is a house in mourning. Lazarus had been ill, and 4 days ago he died. Custom here is that when someone dies, their body is buried almost immediately. And Lazarus's body had been wrapped in grave clothes and placed in the tomb. News of the death of Lazarus had spread quickly, and many people have come to the house to console his sisters, Martha and Mary. Although Lazarus had been very ill, the sisters still hoped that Jesus would come and heal him before it was too late. And knowing the love that Jesus had for their family, they had sent a message to him saying, "Lord, your friend is very ill." That was 4 days ago. By the time Jesus received the message, surely Lazarus was already dead. And so what would be the point in going? But then news came to Martha that Jesus was coming. He was on his way. In fact, he was almost there, almost in the village. And so we follow Martha as she leaves the house to go and meet Jesus. And Mary stays behind. And we see Martha confront Jesus with words of despair. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. If only you had been here whilst he was still alive, you could have healed him and prevented his death. But now it is too late." But she doesn't say it is too late. Because remarkably, we hear Martha express her faith and her trust in Jesus, her Lord. She says, "And even now, I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you." Even now, in this most dreadful moment, when the worst thing possible could have happened, even now, Martha knows that God will give Jesus whatever he asks. Well, what was she thinking? What did she think that Jesus would ask for? Dare she even think it possible that Jesus would ask God to raise her brother from the dead? Then we hear Jesus say to her, "Your brother will rise again." But Martha doesn't think that Jesus is talking about now, about today. Lazarus is not coming out of his tomb today. And Martha says to Jesus, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." Yes, I know he will rise again, but that will happen along with everyone else on the last day. And who knows when that may be? And as we continue to eavesdrop on their conversation, we hear Jesus say something quite astounding, something that he has never said to anyone else before. "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die." And we want to interrupt and say to Martha, don't think about resurrection on the last day. Think about now. Think about today. Think what Jesus has just said to you, that he is the resurrection. He is the life. And if you believe in him, you will never die. Even though your body may end up in a tomb, you will not really be dead, because he is the one who gives you life even in death. But we don't need to say that to Martha, because she already knows it. And Jesus asks her, "Do you believe this? Do you believe that I am the resurrection and the life? Do you believe that I can give you life even though your body may be dead and rotting in a tomb?" And we hear Martha say, "Yes, Lord. I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, he who is coming into the world." Well, how did Martha know that? How had she come to this conclusion about Jesus? We all thought that it was Mary who was taking it all in, sitting at the feet of Jesus, listening to him teaching, whilst Martha was out in the kitchen preparing the food. Well, it seems that Martha had been listening too. That Martha had grasped the identity of Jesus, that he is her Lord, and she believes that he is the Christ, the Son of God, the one sent into the world for a purpose, to give life to the dead. And we watch Martha leave the presence of Jesus, and we follow her back to the house, where she quietly whispers to her sister Mary, The teacher is here and is calling for you. And Mary quickly gets up and she leaves the house. And the people there think that she's going to the tomb to weep at the tomb. And so we walk alongside her as she makes her way to the edge of the village where Jesus is waiting. And when she sees him, she falls down at his feet and she says the very same thing that Martha said. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And seeing Mary and the people with her in such a state of anguish, Jesus himself became visibly shaken and distressed. And he asked where Lazarus was buried. And he's invited to come and see, come and have a look. And then we see that Jesus is also weeping. And the people around were saying, see how he loved him. That Jesus shares in the grief of those around him. But there were a few who wanted to lay the blame upon him. They were saying, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? Well, he can give sight to the blind, so why didn't he prevent the death of Lazarus? And as we view this scene, we realize that people are still the same when they have to contend with death and grief. Why did this have to happen? Surely something could have been done to prevent this. What if this had been in place? What if we had done this instead? So many questions, so many whys, so many ifs. We follow the crowd as they lead Jesus to the tomb. Like so many other tombs in this land, it's a cave with a stone rolled across the entrance. And again, we see how deeply moved and agitated Jesus is, that this is distressing for him. And then perhaps to everyone's surprise, Jesus gives the instruction for the stone sealing the entrance to the cave to be taken away. But Martha quickly objects to this. She says, Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he's been dead 4 days. Martha knows that the natural process of decomposition will have produced a bad smell. And if the tomb is open, they'll be overcome by the stench. And the faith and the trust in Jesus that Martha had expressed just a few moments ago seems momentarily to have deserted her. But in the face of the reality and the finality of death, doubt has entered her mind. But Jesus quickly brings her back to faith by gently reminding her, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? If you want to see what God can do, then just believe. And so we watch the stone being taken away from the tomb entrance, and then we see Jesus lift up his eyes and say, Father, I thank you for having heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me. Father, I'm not asking this for myself. I'm asking you for them, for their sake. And then in a loud voice, Jesus cried out, Lazarus, come out. And the people who are watching the entrance to the cave intently are astonished to see this figure emerge from the darkness, still wrapped in the grave cloths in which he had been buried. And then we hear Jesus give the instruction, unbind him and let him go. Get those clothes off him, dress him in his proper clothes and let him go home. And many of those who had witnessed this wonderful event went away believing in Jesus, believing that he was the one sent by God into this world, that he was the Christ, the Son of God, that he was the resurrection and the life. What other explanation could there be for this? That this was a sign that had convinced them. And if we had really been there ourselves, what would we have done? What would we have thought of all of this? The raising of Lazarus was one of the signs recorded by John to convince his readers of the identity of Jesus. He wrote, "Now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name." And when we read John's account of these things, we are taken back in time to those events, to feel the impact that they have upon us today. And as we return to our own time and our own place, a world that is so different to the one we've just left, what are we to make of it all? How is what happened to a family in a small village near Jerusalem 2,000 years ago, how is that relevant to our lives today? What does it have to do with us? Some things may change over time, but other things do not. And Jesus' claim to be the resurrection and the life, to give life to the dead, is still one that is relevant and true today. And that claim was proven when he raised Lazarus from the dead, and it was proven again by his own resurrection. That here was a demonstration of God's power and glory working through Jesus. Jesus' question to Martha, "Do you believe this?" is still a relevant question that should be asked today. Do you believe this? What do you believe about Jesus? And Martha's confession, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, he who is coming into the world." It's still the right answer to give to that question. By looking at the story in the way that we've done today, trying to get back in time to the story, we might feel a bit closer to the action, a bit closer to Jesus. May it help us to become like Mary, a disciple seated at the feet of Jesus, listening to his teaching, and to be like Martha, a disciple, expressing our trust in Jesus, our faith in him as the Christ, the Son of God, as the resurrection and the life.